I have the pleasure of being joined today by Yun Zhi Lin, who is a partner at Deloitte Engineering. Great to see you. Thanks for making time to catch up with me.
Thank you, Des. Great to be here.
So for our audience today, this is another of our conversations around the beer ops ecosystem. Deloitte Engineering are a gold ExecOps sponsor for both the Melbourne and Sydney events, and congratulations on that. We'll delve into that a bit more. So today we're going to do a little bit of a get to know you, talk about your role, your background. We're going to talk a little bit about Deloitte Engineering. We're going to talk about the event itself and some of the things that people can look forward to, both from yourself and your own team and the organization, and then how you prepare for the events and a whole bunch of other stuff. But maybe I wonder if we could get like a 30,000 foot overview of just you and your background and sort of how you came into this role, and we'll then dive into kind of what a day in the life is like.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, thank you, Des. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be part of the ecosystem and having this interview. For myself, Yun Zhi Lin, coincidentally, Yun means cloud in Chinese. So I guess a few decades back, my parents decided they had the foresight of what I was be doing when I grew up, so name me accordingly. And G means ambition. So cloud ambition is actually what my name stands for in full. So I had quite a bit of a diverse background, someone who always likes to explore new things, try out new ideas, and solve hard problems. Kind of went from early days in some of the dot-com startups, went into consulting, went into the financial sector around quantitative trading and banks, went back into startups ecosystem, and then eventually I wanted to make the impact that I didn't feel that the sort of industry as well as the startups could give me in Australia. So I went back into consulting, and with a few of my peers, we started a boutique consultancy as part of a global brand. And when that was acquired, I joined Deloitte. And what has really drawn me to Deloitte is this concept of being a partner, is really being the sort of business owner for a startup within a larger brand, right? So the Deloitte brand is well known, and I had the opportunity to sort of carve my own path and drive my own go-to-market and build out my own team to sort of solve the wicked problems, for the niche opportunities that I can find in market. One of my sort of past uh, employers that I worked for had the slogan, was Macquarie Bank. They said, "Freedom within boundaries," right? So this is what I have currently, and this is what I thoroughly enjoy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of, I have been around the block, as you can say, right? Been to the various places, and I feel like this really feels a home for me, and me with the team as well. So I think the life of is quite varied, but I think I can broadly categorize into four categories. First and foremost, our clients are the most important. So I do spend a lot of time with clients for existing engagements. I do spend a lot of time cultivating my practice, which is consistent of my team, which is obviously, being a people business. Our people is our most valuable asset. And secondly, the technology assets, right? Especially in this day and age of agentic AI, some of the agents that we build, some of the platforms that we establish. So the combination of the team and assets is sort of my second focus. And obviously, as the teams are sort of going with the projects on the existing client engagements, I'm always out there having conversations, both externally with the client and also internally with other partners within our ecosystem about, what are some of the challenges, what are some of the opportunities, where can I help and my team can help, sort of just to look into some of the pursuits and shape out some of the deals that are coming in the medium to long term. And last but not least, being a business owner, there's always a level of admin, right? So I am supported by quite a number of folks in finance, in talent, and HR, etc. But a lot of signatories and a lot of sign-offs does come to me, and I sort of do need to get through that as well. So in summary, that is a day for me, split between client engagements, practice building, pursuits, and general admin.
It's amazing. And yeah, looking at your career path, it was interesting to sort of hear you talk about sort of going through your own, experience with regard to building a business and then bringing that capability into the Deloitte brand. And I love that idea of like a startup within a brand already. That's something that I don't think many organizations think about with regard to using all of their capability to take not just ideas and business units, but actually create whole new businesses inside themselves. And often, and I'm keen to sort of take a 30-second take on this, but often, and it may be in the case with yourselves there at Deloitte with Deloitte Engineering, is that when you do that, you actually become your own first client in building that capability, delivering those services internally, and then taking it out to your client base. Is that something that sort of happened with your journey as well?
Yeah, I can definitely elaborate on that. But first and foremost, just also wanted to clarify, my previous boutique was sold to another company.
Right.
However, I did when I did join Deloitte, a number of my key sort of lieutenants did sort of come as well. But it wasn't Deloitte did not acquire us, just to clarify.
Gotcha.
Um, yes, so in terms of that sort of organic uh, innovation and the build up. And that is the whole sort of premise of the partnership model, right? Is that a number of different partners can come, bring their ideas, there's a directional strategy which we all align to, but within the strategy, we have room to play. And for example, a lot of the, at the moment, in terms of this concept of being the first client, we do have the luxury of actually pitching ideas to other parts of the firm who specialize in other areas, where they will have their deep network in their deep industry. And I can actually come with an idea and say, hey, have we thought about using agents for this particular industry use case? And I will actually talk to industry experts in my partnership. And then they will say, hey, that's a great idea. Let me set up a conversation, with my client, and then we can have that follow up. So in essence, it's good for the client in that they would get the best of Deloitte. They would get the best of our engineering capability around agents, platform building, migration, modernization, etc. But they also get the benefit of the Deloitte industry experts who are very well known, for their particular craft, for that particular industry. And, we can come together to bring the, right proposition for the client. And,
Yeah.
the client gets sort of the best of all the different disciplines within the firm. Another
Yeah.
use case is also that within our internal organization, we also have internal toolings and internal platforms, which are also quite substantial, because we do a lot of managed services for some very sizable clients, very secure sort of government organizations as well. And a lot of the toolings, a lot of the advanced technology can actually be used by our own operation teams and security sort of operation teams as well. And in the sense that Deloitte can also be the client of their own products as well, in that matter.
Yeah, it's the envy of many of your competitors, I imagine, because you've got that full breadth of capability from the advisory and consulting and professional services at one end, and you're part of the business, as it were, with the engineering and technical capabilities. And I imagine that you cover the full gamut, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we think about a company like Deloitte, you've got that advisory, consulting, and professional services one end, which a lot of people know the Deloitte brand for. But when we think about your engineering capabilities, it is the full stack, isn't it? It's from the selection of hyperscalers and sometimes data centers, physical service storage, router switches, servers, design patterns, the proof of concepts, testing, cost models, business cases, all the way up to implementation. And then I guess a handover to the client or some third party to provide maintenance. Is that a fair sort of way to summarize that your sort of whole end-to-end, top-to-bottom gamut capability?
Yes, Des, I think that's a perfect summary, right? That is the crux of this new Deloitte engineering brand that we have launched market. And our mission statement for Deloitte Engineering is to drive transformation, right, to make an impact that matters by combining Australia's best engineering capability with a product-centric mindset and business insight, right? It is very much a full spectrum, the full gamut. We are full stack for engineering capability, but also we do have business specialists in banking, government, health, and also emerging industries, together with a operation team. And our engineers combine engineering, AI, data, advisory, and all in all is about 1,000 of these sort of experts who are passionate about their respective field coming together to solve engineering problems for our clients with the understanding of the business.
One of the things that I also like about what you can bring to the table, before we get onto the ExecOps sponsorship piece,
Mm,
is that not only have you got the local expertise and knowledge and experience, and whether it's a small to medium large business, whether it's a council or state government or federal government need IRAT4 certified
mm,
environments, whether it's someone who's a multinational that might need something in the US and EMEA, Europe, or wherever it might be, you've got your local team on the ground, including yourself, but you've also got the global footprint of the organization to draw on with all that business and technology capability and regional expertise, which I imagine is a huge differentiator for you to be able to then delve into that and go, you know what, we've got someone who's an expert in finance in the German market that can
mm.
come to the table with your bank or whatever the case may be. That to me seems like a huge differentiator for you as well as far as not just the Deloitte brand, but your Deloitte engineering capability.
Yes, definitely. The engineering brand is a global brand. We are part of a APAC member firm where we draw a lot of the more advanced, different thinking, right? Advanced and different thinking out of our APAC
Yeah.
counterparts, and then we can always reach out to the wider global around Europe, EMEA, and US as well. And that is actually what our clients asked for as well. They said, what is everyone else doing, right? What are some of the thought leadership coming out of Asia? What is some of the thought leadership coming out of the US? And we can draw upon that within 24 hours, right? And the next day we will have some insight from our global firms that we can present to our client. And we can always sort of also bring that voice to the table as well. The global team visits and as part of various knowledge shares that we can actually uh, meet in person, right, with some of our global leaders in this space as well, across Europe, US, and Asia. And then
Yeah.
that's also part of the sort of value proposition that we bring, right? That diversity of thought leadership,
Mm, mm.
right? Local and global. Yeah.
And also, for our audience who probably know this, but I just wanted to sort of touch on it, is that when you walk in the door with a potential opportunity or an existing client, you also bring in a global team with you of your entire ecosystem of other sort of, what we might consider partners, integrators, resellers, and technology business partners, whether it's a hyperscaler, whether it's a
Mhm.
hardware vendor, whether it's a cybersecurity company,
Yeah.
where they are effectively bolted to your hip. You can tap into their expertise. I imagine someone like a Microsoft, you've got the entire team of Microsoft at your behest if there's a challenge that the client puts to the table that needs that joint capability. That in itself as well, I think, is just another feather in your cap that gives you that huge capability of not just your own in-house experience and knowledge and skills and people like yourself, but also tapping into the depth and breadth of decades and decades of countless big, global house name brands that you can bring to the table as well.
Yes, definitely. I think the partnership is obviously our internal construct, but it very much applies to the external strategic alliance as well. That we are
Yeah.
very much equal partners, and our clients really like this idea of a three-way partnership, right? The client, our alliance partner, and us coming together to solve their most wicked problems, right? Both in the government sector as well as in the private enterprises. And of course, yeah, we work with, the biggest hyperscalers as well as a number of the sort of very sort of security-centric vendor products as well. And a number of product companies as well, right, with very specialized products that we do see market fit, right, for our clients. So yeah, like the client definitely get the sole leadership from us in that deep integration experience as well as the product SME, but also the best sort of support from the vendor partners as well.
Yeah, I love that sort of win-win-win outcome of a win for you, win for the
Yes.
client, win for your business partners. So, firstly, congratulations on taking up the gold sponsorship of the ExecOps events in both Melbourne and Sydney. Um, our audience are very familiar with both the Beer Ops and the ExecOps events themselves, but just to recap, ExecOps is sort of Beer Ops is I think 11 years now, and you've been there from the get-go, from what I understand,
Mhm.
and we'll delve into that in a little moment. But um, with over a decade of these amazing events, it's described now as Australia's largest tech networking event, getting birds of feather at different levels of experience and background and career paths, which we'll get into in a minute, into rooms and getting them to connect and network and share ideas and ask big questions. When we think about an event like ExecOps from Deloitte Engineering's point of view, what do these events bring to the table for you guys? What do these events offer that that attracts you to become a gold sponsor in the like of the Melbourne and Sydney events for ExecOps? What attracts you to these types of events?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. This is that I've been sort of part of the beer ops journey right from the beginning, and I'm really glad to see that the audience is evolving, right, from that our sort of developer, technology enthusiast, right, practitioner, expert cohort, expanding into the data space, AI space, and then now sort of moving into the whole exec audience as well, right? And as Deloitte, we're very very honored and privileged to be part of this sponsorship journey to support the ExecOps event as part of Beer Ops. I think there's probably a number of factors that really excite myself as well as our broader firm around being able to be part of this journey. Is that currently we are in unprecedented times, right? When it comes to technology, opportunity, disruption. But one thing does remain true is that when we interact, we want to do business with people, right? People want to do business with people, and that networking, that human empathy, that connection has it, out of all the times where we've been in IT, probably now is the most time that we need to focus right on that human connection. And I think Beer Ops is a great opportunity for us all to come together. People remain the same. The brand names might change. People move around. But when it comes to Beer Ops, you get to see familiar faces, right? Whether, they're your peers or, your
Yeah.
previous mentors and your previous bosses or some of your juniors that you've, seen graduate, but now they're moving up through to the mid-range, mid-level developer, manager, etc. It's just such a good feeling, right? That sort of the empathy, the amount of serotonin that you get from just being in the room is amazing. For me personally, there's an element of giving back. I personally do acknowledge, right? Steve Wallace and the team has helped me on my career journey, right? Helped me from shifting from that sort of individual contributor to the technology leader towards the business sort of orientated owner. That journey has been running in parallel as I've been attending Beer Ops, and every time I go back, there's something different about me, right? And I'm actually very looking forward to, first of all, sponsorship from a sort of financial perspective for the event, but also just connecting with others who may need a bit of a hand, right? They might need a bit of a sort of mentorship advice, right? More than happy to give that and help cultivate, right, the next generation of technology professionals, the technology leaders, moving into business world, into business leadership. And last but not least, right, we are hiring. So, being an organization fueled by growth and, driven by very diverse work across multiple clients and various technology stacks, we are always on the lookout for the best talent in the market. And where to find the best talent is obviously at the best and the largest Australian technology meetup, right? So it is that human connection, it is that giving back, and it is the fact that we are also on the lookout for best talent for our organization that really excite us about being a gold sponsor.
I love it. I think Steve should be putting that, Stephen should be putting that on a brochure somewhere and quoting you. I wonder if I could just circle back on a couple of those key points. There are
Yes.
a number of things that jumped out at me. I love how you outlined that. The first was, I guess, your personal journey from a professional point of view of being part of this for over a decade now. And as you outlined, sort of going through your career path, your career evolution and growth as a professional, and certainly within the organization of Deloitte Engineering, coming along step by step through those and seeing the actual event itself evolve.
Mhm.
That must be quite inspiring to sort of go along and experience that journey yourself. But now then, as you mentioned, to be able to then come back and give back to that kind of community that in a small way kind of was part of your journey.
Indeed, indeed. And I think, if I extrapolate the journey, and I think as my mindset evolved, this sort of building blocks sort of expand as well. Um, and I feel like this journey to some extent also reflects the Beer Ops journey, right?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it was about very much my career, and I feel like Beer Ops in the beginning is also similar, right? It's about what, right? It was very orientated towards tech back in the day, right? When you think about it, containers, DevOps, cloud, right? It was very sort of about, hey, this DevOps thing is really making a bit of a splash, right? Let's get all the tech meetups that that's around. Let's pull them together into this big event. Let's celebrate the tech, celebrate the technologies. And and I just kind of thinking about my journey in the beginning, it's all about the tech, right? And I feel like that's probably most technologies will start with, hey, what tech? What, right? Is it Kubernetes? Is it LangChain? Is it AI, right? Which model? It's all about the tech. And then eventually you realize, well, need to figure out the how, right? Like,
Mm.
how do you get, is it ML ops, right? Is it some sort of agentic architecture? Like, how do you actually get that tech into adding some value for either your company or your clients, right? Back in the day, it used to be, well, DevOps was a hell, right? How do you do continuous delivery, right, as opposed to waterfall, agile, etc. And there was a time in my journey where I was really an expert around how to do this, right? How to do serverless, right? How to do containers, how to run containers at scale when Kubernetes wasn't even, around back in the early days, right? It was still very much sort of a competition between multiple container orchestrator. That's when I was jumping in with the startups on, hey, this is how you should roll out containers and segregate your business logic into microservices, right? How to do that. And I think eventually when I wanted to make more impact, I realized that, all this is good, right? But behind the how and the what is actually a why, right? There is a fundamental driver, there's a compelling reason, right? There is a burning platform, right? Of that really drives an organization or customer to either buy the product or for organization to transform towards a new technology, right? By articulating the why, it actually becomes a lot more easier to work towards the how, whether it's DevOps, serverless, containers, and the what, right? Which hyperscaler, which particular language, right? And that applies to sort of architecture as well as sort of business problems, right? In terms of architecture, why are we doing this, right? Why are we thinking
Yeah.
about the serverless? So is it cost? Is it acceleration? Is it, security, right? Like that why dictates everything. And that's sort of when I started moving back into the consulting space, it very much about pitching. Why should we do this, right? What is the business benefit? What is the technology benefit, right? Is this driven by technology or business or both, right? Why don't you come together and talk to each other? And then that way the benefit will benefit everybody, right? So that became very sort of I guess sort of prevalent towards the sort
Yeah.
of my sort of second decade, right? The first decade is very much about the what and the how. The second decade is more about the why. But then as and then this is coincide with sort of the bureau journey, and as I sort of step into larger scale transformations, right? As part of my transition to Deloitte is, well, there's a who, right? We know the how, the why, the why, the how, the what, but who, right? Who is this impacting, right? Who do we need to talk to? Who are the select folks that need to make a decision, and then we need to then go to the team to get them on board, like top down, bottom up, right? So I think I did actually. There was conversation with Steve and the organizers for bureaus that I had. Is like, look, yeah, I think we need a bit of a more exclusive cohort, right? So
Right.
I think that was about 3 years ago, and then in this different iteration, now we have what is now the ExecOps, right? But I think the first iteration was literally a different room, and everyone was in a room, and that was also a bit of a free for all. But now I think we now evolve towards a bit more structured ExecOps with panels and discussions. Um, but that also shows that as the technologist or as a event evolves throughout the journey, right? You will no doubt always come to this pivot point of, well, are we still bottom up or top down, or are we both? And I think, you know, we'll see. We'll see when we get to the event. Is that I feel that Bureau has struck a good balance between top down and bottom up, and I think that's also the sort of stage in my journey where I think a lot of the technologies are always changing, but what is constant is the people, right?
Yeah.
If we know what our people want, right, as Jeff Bezos says, right, what customer wants, right, faster delivery, right, wide selection of goods, right. If we know the people, we can always work out why they want something, how they would like it delivered, and what sort of technology we should deliver to them, right? So at this stage of my
Indeed.
life, it's all about the who, and I feel that this exec just gives an avenue to myself and others, right, who also wants to meet similar peers, similar level, similar journey, have that conversation, and we can always move into beer ops and have a good drink with the
Yeah, well,
wider developers. Yeah.
and that, going back to something else you said that leads me into something that I think is really a fundamental element through the evolution of the events, and certainly from my couple of years of experience with it on and off, is, there's always a focus on the classic sort of what we would refer to as DEI as far as inclusivity goes. But one of the things that really jumps out at me, and I think Stephen and the team have done an amazing job, as you outlined, with the evolution of the event, and particularly with the structuring of Beer Ops and now ExecOps as well, in parallel, as a sister event, is that whole inclusivity element, for me, which is around sort of, inclusion of different age brackets and age groups, and inclusion in different roles and responsibilities, and inclusion in different industries, so that, somebody that may have started out like you did early on with different learning experience can now talk to someone like you who's got your current experience and everything in between. And it may be that I'm talking to a new hire somewhere that's just got their first job as coming out of a graduate program, or it might be someone like yourself who's got, decades of experience. It may be someone who's a software developer or a DevOps engineer. It may be someone who's a project manager in software implementation. It could be a CEO. And I really love that inclusive sort of element of that diversity, if you like, beyond the traditional DEI,
Mhm.
sort of the diversity of all those people, so that birds of a feather at different levels can mix and mingle. And I imagine that sits really well with the whole inclusivity and diversity piece that not you just personally and professionally, but also Deloitte Engineering strives for. Would that be fair?
Yeah, yeah, I think Deloitte is by far, definitely one of the organizations leading the way when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and we've been
Mm,
um, sort of leading the way when it comes to sort of equal paternity leave, maternity leave, right? Our team has probably still, based on my understanding, has been the only professional services organization to participate in the Mardi Gras as well, right?
yep.
To as a whole team, and I think that diversity is no doubt part of our DNA, part of our value proposition. And I do sort of also acknowledge is what you say is 100% in terms of the diversity of thought, right? The diversity of skill set and experience is something which we definitely celebrate and live day to day, right? As a result of the sort of partnership, I myself always have peers that I can consult with, right? If I were, in an organization, typically, there could be a limited number of sort of C-levels, executive GMs. Whereas for us, because it's a partnership, I can always consult, my fellow technology partners or other business partners and say, hey, what do you think, right? There is that sort of, even at my level, I can always feel free to consult with others, but my team members can always get access to me, right? They don't have to
Yeah.
go through
Yeah.
levels and levels. I'm sitting there on the floor with everyone else. I'm sitting on the client side with everybody else, right? I'm easily accessible by the client and also by my own team. It's a very flat structure. And that's how we sort of work as Deloitte. And when I go to bureaus, definitely that is also the case, right? I see all levels, right? I, bump into some of my peers, right? Some of my senior clients. I see some of the juniors that I used to coach who have sort of moved up the chain a bit. And I also catch up with others who say, hey, I moved on from this firm to this firm, and I'm looking for opportunity. Do you have something for me? Right? It's
Yeah.
just, I think it is very much, that traditional diversity plus the diversity of experience, of roles and responsibility, of thought leadership. Um, it's yeah, the combination really makes it very rewarding, right?
Fantastic. Yeah, I love that sort of concept of sort of, flattening the playing field, which also then levels the rest of the elements around that everyone
Mhm.
can talk directly. And I imagine you did touch on this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to sort of circle back at too, because I thought it was quite an important and salient point with regard to this, and that is that when you go into organizations, you are talking at every level of business potentially. You're talking at every parts of the organization, different roles, responsibilities, potentially like to the board and the C level. And CEO, but at the same time, you're potentially talking to people at all levels of the organization, whether software developers, database engineers, cloud architects, etc. And I imagine that's part of the DNA that you bring to the table, not just for ExecOps and the BeerOps community, but also for your clients, that you are able to go toe to toe as experts on all levels of the technology stack, all parts of the business. And that to me seems like a big part of what Deloitte Engineering can bring to the table.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's there's a book written by Gregor Hopp called The Architecture Elevator. I mean, the book is very much orientated towards, the versatile architect who can go all the way to the penthouse with the C-suites, with the execs, and then go all the way into the engine room in the basement with engineers. Now that's very a technical. It's a very technical or analogy, and obviously that book is orientated to architects as well. But it does paint a very good picture, right, of sort of the journey one needs to go through, right, to make an organization transform has to go up and down the elevator, get everybody on board for the entire um, engine to move. Now, at Deloitte, we do that by nature of our organization, right? So any team, right, that gets on the client, like they will be straight away presented to some very senior folks in the client organization, right? They'll be working with various senior folks, right, mid levels and juniors together, right? So they are used to that, right, right from the start, and being instilled to say, hey, there are different levels of sort of detail, right? There's different levels of technicality, conciseness, that needs to be adjusted as sort of the higher you go, the lower you go, and the condition for that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think by all means, our organization does offer that elevator, right, of the sort of the different levels, and as we go into client, we then sort of naturally adjust, right, to the different level of audience that we speak with. Um, and that's kind of one of the sort of good thing is that when at Beer Ops, when uh, any of the audience who wish to sort of engage and talk with our team is ready, right? They can talk at all different levels, right, about the problem that they're solving for their clients, and also go into the deep dive into some of the technicalities, right? We got some of the
yeah.
deeper experts in these areas as well, right? We can go all the way from the penthouse to the engine room is sort of what we do what we train our juniors to do from entry level, mid level engineers to management to directorship, right, all the way to myself, right. I'm still sort of coding on the weekends as well, like to get into it so that I still understand.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to get hands off keyboard if you've come from a technical background, is that
Yeah,
you're always, a number of times I see someone using a click and point tool on a GUI and I'm sitting there going, just give me the command line and I'll put a little bash script together. Following on that, I'd love to sort of get your thoughts around a couple of key points. So, talking about what you're bringing to the event and your team, yourself, and the brand itself. How One of the things I like to ask my guests with regard to these conversations leading up to the Beer Ops and ExecOps events for Melbourne and Sydney coming up, which are October the 22nd and October the 28th, respectively, as far as Melbourne and Sydney go. And wherever people see this, we will have links and details of where you can register and get more information. What sort of advice would you give attendees to best prepare to get the maximum value out of their time from yourself and your team and the Deloitte Engineering brand?
yeah. So I think I'll highly recommend look at our new brand website, search Deloitte Engineering, right. You will find the Australian side as well as our global side. Get to know our offerings, right, ranging from sort of the advisory into the implementation, integration, modernization, infrastructure networking, security, etc. I think definitely take advantage of the breadth of industries that we're across, right? So right now there's a lot of buzzwords. I'm not going to dive into the details of what's agentic versus generative, etc. But we've seen it, right? We are across on the forefront. We are in the different industries. Every organization will have their select tech stack, their select hyperscaler. We work with all of them, right? We work with all of the tech hyperscalers, with all of the tech stacks, there's open source frameworks, and we're seeing this, right? It's a cycle, right? So what we are seeing now with the adoption of agents, with the adoption of AI, with the sort of going through the hype cycle, moving into more strategic enterprise capability approach from experiments. It happened 10 years ago with cloud adoption, right? It happened with containers. It happened with sort of that traditional machine learning. We have seen that. Our folks have been there, done that. And, we are definitely sort of there that can shed some light on what we see across the intersection of the industry and give you that bird's eye view, right? So prepare with
Yeah,
some
yeah.
questions. If you're interested in what we do, look at the website and speak to us, right?
Fantastic. Great advice. Yes. And just, to add to that, I often suggest that people Just Google you, learn a bit about you as an individual, look at your LinkedIn profile and learn about your background, where you came from, where you're at currently. Have a look at some of your recent blogs, articles, interviews, posts, conversations like this, and actually get some insight into you as a professional, as an individual, so that they can come along and kind of have a good sense of what sort of conversation they should prepare for. But also, as you said, have a look at the company website, have a look at some of the news releases and announcements and latest insights, look at the latest blogs, look at the products and services and capabilities and so forth and offering, so that when you turn up there, you're not just talking cold and trying to make up a conversation. You have done the homework. It's almost like dating. It's like, do a little bit of homework before you go to a date so you get the maximum out of that experience. But also, I would like to add to what you were just saying there, and that is that prepare with the idea that you're not only just going to get a great opportunity to talk to yourself and your team and the Deloitte Engineering brand, but also then what can you take away from the event? So do your homework to prepare for it and make the most out of the evenings, whether it's Melbourne or Sydney or both. But also look at it from, okay, where do I go from here? Do I follow you to keep up to date? Do I potentially see if I can connect you with you on LinkedIn? Is that appropriate? Do I bookmark the website? Do I follow you on Twitter? What hashtags should I be? Think about, how does that conversation go beyond the event? Because it's a great event. It's a great opportunity to get to know people like yourself in person. But then what comes after that? And I think so that's great tips on getting ready for it. And I think beyond that. To wrap us up, I wonder, because this has been a great conversation, but I've had you for a long time and I'm mindful that you've got a busy day ahead. To help us wrap up, what's the best way to keep up to date with yourself professionally, the Deloitte Engineering brand? Where can people go to get more information and just stay across of what you're doing on a day-to-day and monthly basis with news and announcements and updates and potentially your posts and so forth, either in parallel to the event or independently of the event?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, our brand is consistent of our partners who lead in different areas. For myself, I focus around modernization of legacy applications, building out new product and propositions, as well as building agentic solutions that accelerate, right, the building of products or the modernization. I can be found very easily on LinkedIn. My username is Mr. Serverless, right? So definitely, reach out, connect, follow, and other event, have your LinkedIn QR code ready, because it's a massive event, right? This is a pro tip, not just for interacting with me, but for interacting with everybody else, is that bring the QR code and everyone can scan you and connect. Yeah, I think just start with me as an individual, and then there's obviously the Deloitte Engineering global site and our local website as well. But between myself and the other engineering partners, we always sort of repost each other's updates, and I think that sort of personal connection is probably the best way to keep in touch and get the latest on what's happening.
Great advice. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to get to know a little bit about your background, your current role, what a day in the life is like for you, a little bit more about what Deloitte overall and certainly your part of the business, Deloitte Engineering offers. We'll have you back on the show again soon to have a conversation about that in a bit more detail. But in the meantime, thanks for your time today. It's been great to catch up with you. We're really looking forward to catching up with you at the as part of your Gold ExecOps sponsorship at Melbourne and Sydney. And for folk who've tuned in, wherever you see this, whether it's on our Vidneon platform, on our YouTube channel, whether it's on a social media post somewhere, there will be links to all the relevant details, the BeerOps website for Melbourne and Sydney. If you haven't already, make sure you register. Certainly relevant LinkedIn profiles for individuals, for the brands and their websites. Click on them, bookmark them, send them an invite. And as you said, make sure you've got the QR code open. I did get a little cheat code once. I was at an event in Shenzhen and someone actually told me to screenshot the QR code so I could quickly open it in the camera by double tapping the camera and clicking pictures, but also have the apps in the background so I could scan other people so I wasn't flipping between search and QR, which is a good little hack. But anyway, on that note, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great, fantastic afternoon. It's been a real pleasure having you on today, and we'll look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you, Des. Looking forward to the event.
Cheers.